The viewpoints were first articulated by a dancer of the name of Mary Overley in the 60s, I think. And what she did was she took the two elements that you use in performance of time and space, and she broke them down into component parts. And initially her viewpoints were called the 6 viewpoints. And I think she had shape, story, time, emotion, movement, and space. And she developed a way of improvising, which was mainly used by dancers, which was really groundbreaking in that time, because choreography in dance was usually set upon the dancers, and the dancers wouldn't actually have any kind of creativity in creating the compositions that went on stage. So Mary Overley empowered her dancers to be able to improvise to create choreography. And so then Anne Bogart, she was a theatre director, she came along and saw what Mary was doing with the viewpoints, and she saw the potential in this for actors. And so what she did was she broke down the viewpoints further, and she put them into categories of time and space. And she created kind of like a template for actors to create improvisations which were very physical and which were very useful for ensembles to come together, to create bonds between groups very, very quickly, and also to enable actors to create stage pictures, to become more aware of what they're doing in space, instead of just being at the director's beck and call to do whatever the director wants. So basically, the viewpoints gets rid of the hierarchy of the director as the dictator of all the action, and puts a lot of creative power into the hands of the actors. And then I went to the United States to study with Anne Bogart and the City Company, and that in 2007, so 10 years ago. And the viewpoints for me was very, very liberating, because as an actor I've always been very physical, always been very in touch with my body, and it was a way of physically expressing things that you don't really get to do in a normal acting setting. And I've always been very, very terrified of improvisation, and so I found this, because it was movement based, it wasn't so scary for me. So and then I just continued training with the City Company. I became their artistic associate for 2 years, and their training just kind of influenced everything that I did. And for me, what I like on stage is to see very physical performances. So I began to develop a kind of storytelling style for the theatre, which involved telling stories through your body as well as through your voice. So what I like to do is take movement sequences or simple gestures that have meaning behind them, that relate to a play that I'm doing, and express the story through movement as well as through the words, so not just relying on the text to tell the story. So I've developed kind of a performance aesthetic that combines movement, text, and music. I always like to have live music, and to see how the three elements work together to tell a story in a non-hierarchical way. So nothing is more important than the other.
Now, as a finishing touch, you can kiss my shoe.
Basically, we looked at the main themes within the play. So we had sex, lust, desire, power, submission. I think there were a few others. And what we did was each character or each actor had to go away and create one gesture for each of these themes. So Miss Julia's gesture of power became this, like the kiss my hand move. Juan's gesture of submission, I think, was him on his knee. And basically these were the only gestures that we were allowed to use as characters. And so in the beginning, what our director did was we'd take sections of the script and he'd set us little composition tasks. So he'd say, okay, this part is a game. It's a status game. So I want you to create a series of movements that has an element of play. You have to have your gesture of power. You have to have 3 gestures of submission, 4 gestures of lust. You have to have a slap, a kiss, and a repeated movement sequence. Each character also had a floor pattern, which is the way you walk through space. So Juan's floor pattern is like it's very curvy, and Miss Julia's is very straight lines.
Bravo! You should have gone on the stage.
We basically came up with movement sequences first, and I'll take, for example, the first game that they play together, where she comes in and he gives her a drink, and then like they have this kind of little power game where she makes him kiss her shoe. And I think the ingredients for that little composition were a kiss. There had to be elements of repetition. I can't remember how many. I had to use my gesture of power and desire, and I think they had to be repeated several times, so repetition is one of the viewpoints. We had to vary the tempo, so tempo is one of the viewpoints. We had to have several moments of kinesthetic response, which is also another viewpoint. So there is a moment where I think I say, but sit down first, and I make a movement which he reacts to.
And what do they say? Demon, but sit down first.
So all of these gestures that show up throughout these compositions actually bring up underlying things in the play, like the death theme or this thing of desire, you know. And then basically what the director would do, he'd come back in and say, okay, show me your movement. And then we'd take the text that it was based on and just put it on top and see what happened. See where it landed, and then the director would like move things around and say, okay, so I want you to say that line before you walk, wait, and then say that line after he kisses your foot, you know, things like that. So the movement score for the whole play was made independently of the text, which is very different from a normal way of blocking a play where you will have, okay, so I say, okay, give me a glass of wine. So I think you should move over there, get her a glass of wine and give it to her. No, we didn't even think about the words. We just made the movement first.